Hey, I am Delaney Spaulding, and this is the Dental Debrief. Today, I want to talk about end-of-day systems. It's something that was very important for us to incorporate into our office back in 2020 when I had no idea what I was doing. So I needed to have a way in order to keep track of everything and just know that I was doing the best I possibly could in order to understand all of the money that was happening in the office. So follow along and I will try to walk you through what we do every single day in our office. So a little bit about me. This is my timeline. So I'm a pretty new graduate. I graduated in May of 2018 from Boston University. I worked for a very short time in a DSO in Boston. It was not a great experience. I got married to my husband and we moved down to Alabama where I knew no one. And I started working at a private practice as an associate. I learned a lot about dentistry, learned almost nothing about business when I was there. I originally made this presentation for some dental students at the Alabama Dental School. So when I realized I wasn't super happy at my private practice, I decided I wanted to start volunteering my time there. So I met a lot of them during my time volunteering at the dental school. In March of 2020, COVID made everything very interesting for everyone. So I started looking for a change in my life. I told my husband I was either interested in us starting a family, maybe taking some time off of dentistry, or I wanted to buy a practice. Those are two very different things, but I kind of needed him to be on board with either one of them. So he said, go ahead and start looking for a practice. Let's put off having kids for a little bit. So I started working at a dental office that was owned by a younger female dentist who had 3 kids and wanted to stay home with them. And I completely get that. So in June of 2020, I guess 2021, I purchased Rossbridge Dentistry June of 2020. I purchased my office and I learned all of the basics of the business of dentistry very, very quickly. Had a lot of long nights, a lot of imposter syndrome. My parents are very much into industry and were able to help me through the process. And I don't know where I'd be without them because I had no idea what I was doing. And then I also found out I was pregnant. It was a very, very stressful time period in my life. But now, I guess I'm recording this in February of 2023 and my baby's almost 2. I got another baby on the way. Everything is perfect and I feel so much happier in my life because the office is successful and measurable and I understand everything that's going on. And that is something that really makes me happy, just knowing I am very much in control of this business that I own. So here are some pictures of me, my kid, graduating class, and then this is our dog, Duke. All right, so why did I want to make a presentation about this? So I know we are all part of these dental Facebook groups, and my question for you is when you read these long Facebook posts, are any of them filled with red flags that you think, oh my gosh, I know immediately what to do? Or are you the person who's posting these things? Because if you're the person who's posting these things, this presentation really is for you. Because if you know more of what is going on in your practice, then you can't really get embezzled from. And it's not saying you can't, you always can. But if you know the nitty gritty day to day of all of the money going in and out of your practice and how it matches up to procedures that are done, it's way harder to get embezzled from. So I am going to say, go ahead and pause this and read it through. All right, so let's pick out some red flags. So whenever you are looking up any report in your office and you're trying to match it to things, they should match up. It should be super easy for them to match up. If any numbers in your office don't match up, you should immediately know why as the owner of the practice. Especially if you're bringing on new team members, you need to assume every error is a mistake until proven otherwise. And everyone makes mistakes. Totally happens. Something else that you shouldn't be doing is deferring everything to your accountant. Your accountant is very important and a great member of the team, but when it comes to the day-to-day, they aren't in your practice. They don't know what dentistry goes on. They just don't. They have too many other things going on. So you are the number one person who needs to be in charge of this, especially if your accountant is the one that is bringing things to your attention. You should be the one to immediately know if there's anything going on. And once you know there's something going on, it's trying to figure out, well, where is the discrepancy? So I have highlighted rushes to input information and frequently makes corrections to the ledger. That's potentially signs of someone who doesn't understand the importance of really detail-oriented work. And they are concerned about ever bringing up an issue to you because they want to they make corrections to the ledger. The only person who should be able to make corrections to the ledger is you. That's the only way that you're going to know if things are getting sloppy or if mistakes are happening. The silver lining of this post is that all these issues force this poster back into the habit of checking their reports. And that is something that if you walk away with nothing from this, at least you walk away saying it is important to check your reports. This is just highlighting all those things I just said. So based on this, would you consider this embezzlement? In my opinion, yes. Maybe not. Never really followed up on how this resolved. But embezzlement is incredibly common in a dental practice. About 35% of dental offices have been embezzled from once and 17% more than once, which means we aren't good at learning lessons. And all these comments are saying the exact same, that you need to be so much more on top of everything, and you really need to look into a forensic accountant in order to backtrack all your books. But think about not having to backtrack all your books if you know you have a perfect copy of all of your books from the entire time that you have been practicing. All right, so now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of it. My office is full of systems, and a system is a regularly interacting or interdependent group of items forming a unified whole. As my dad says, it has to pass the sniff test. If something looks alarming, you should be able to double check it and figure out what's right and what's wrong. So my system is filled with checks and balances. By having multiple reports interdependent on each other, it increases the chance of catching a mistake. 99% of the time, it's going to be a true mistake, but 1% of the time, it's going to be dishonesty. And mistake or dishonesty, you're going to be able to catch it immediately. So this is what I mean when I say you can't really be embezzled from if you know everything that's going on. Few disclaimers. I did not make the system. I am trying to make it digestible to anyone who's watching this video simply because I wish I had this video. I own a completely out-of-network office, and this is a system that I use in my office. I make references to Open Dental, but you can use this with anything. The report names may be different, but every practice management software is going to have a similar report. I also make references to QuickBooks, but again, any accounting software would work for this, but you have to have access to that accounting software, and it involves daily input. You could even probably break this down to an Excel document, but QuickBooks is out there and it's relatively inexpensive, so just get QuickBooks. And the system requires daily work from the owner. It cannot be delegated. You cannot have an office manager doing this. Typically, it is office managers or people very entrenched in the finances of your practice, which are the ones committing doing embezzlement. They have to know where all the bodies are buried in order to know where they can take money from. So this is not something that can be delegated. All right. Now I'm going to break it down into two very simple topics. First, we are going to construct the end of day packet. And then we're going to complete the end of day tasks. So with the end of day packet, if you ever wondered what reports should I be keeping up with on a daily basis, this is what the end of day packet is. So our end of day packet, and this is all names of open dental reports. They are the individual provider production reports, the receivables breakdown, the payments, the adjustments, and all production. I will say if you are in network with insurance, this should also include write-offs, the write-off report, but I'm not. And again, it's a system I use in my office, so make it work for you. All right, so now we'll go into each one of the reports. So only the producers in the office are aware of what they did or didn't do that day with their hands. So by each provider, we're talking about the dentist or the hygienist. Those are the only two people that are going to be able to review and accurately assess their individual production report. And their main goal in this is to catch errors. So it's incredibly important when employee pay is related to production. So especially if you're watching this and you're an associate and you know you get paid based on collections or productions, you get paid based on something involving how much dentistry you did. You need to know walking out every single day if what is in the practice management software is correct. If it's not correct and you're trying to bring it up a month later, that is really difficult to unfold. So on a daily basis, this needs to be kind of assessed and looked at. So before reports are given to the providers, the fees associated with the code should be double checked by the front desk, and the front desk should do a once over to say, yes, this is the front desk should say, this is my interpretation of what happened today, and now I'm going to hand out homework to every producer in the office before they leave the building. All right, what are they checking for? They're looking for any radiographs that happened or didn't happen that don't match up with the report. They're trying to figure out, were they doing an adult prophy? Were they doing a child prophy? Any fluoride that got it on? Did someone end up ordering or buying toothpaste, floss, toothbrush, water floss, or anything you sell in your office? Those are the things that oftentimes will be a conversation between the hygienist and the patient. Hygienist goes out and hands it to the patient with the assumption that it was notated in their chart and the patient paid for it. But those are all things that can happen with breakdown communication, which is why this is a point for us to double check that system and make sure it's working. Or surfaces on fillings. We always tell patients, this is the treatment plan. This is what I'm expecting to do. Things happen. Or you're doing a buildup in crown. You get into it and you're like, oh, don't need a buildup. Fantastic. You should be the one walking up to the front desk and saying, we did not do a buildup on that tooth. That way the front desk takes it off, and throughout the rest of the day, it is not set to complete as though you did it. And that can happen, especially if reports don't get checked. At the end of the day, if what is on the schedule is not what actually happened in the patient's mouth, you're edging on fraud. You have to accurately say, this is what happened in this appointment. All right, so how are we going to say this report has been checked? So everyone does a little bit differently. You put a check mark next to each procedure you did. And if it is correct, you will be putting your initials at the bottom. No one else can sign your sheet. No one else can accurately say that's what happened. But again, everyone does it a little differently. So here's an example of my hygienist and myself. So what I think is interesting is my hygienist will go through and she will put a check mark next to every procedure that was performed, next to her name. She crosses out things that aren't important to her. Everything is going to pop up on this sheet, collections, adjustments, but the only thing that matters to her is everything in the production column and that she did it. So she puts a check mark next to her name saying, yes, those things were done. Me, from the money perspective, I am going and I put my check mark next to the fee associated, because looking down, I know the fees in my practice. I know that I can very quickly and accurately line up each patient with what fee was associated that day and run through it. And at the bottom, we both initial it. She always puts a smiley face, whatever, don't care. As long as it's hers, and it's, if I ever need to look back and say, what happened on this day, I at least have two reference points. I have what the patient says and the notes, more than two, and what my hygienist says. My hygienist is also paid on production. So she cares very much that her sheet is accurate. She is going to be looking for bite wings if they're due for it, looking for fluoride treatment if they're of age. She's going to offer sealants to anyone, and she is making sure that production is on that report because it matters to her. And if you're an associate dentist or you pay your hygienist on production, this is a great way to make sure that no one's coming back and saying, my pay's off. And because mainly this is also for training purposes for my office, I have included the different ways to access these reports. So in Open Dental, here's how you can access it. I'm not going to run through it, but if you use Open Dental and you're looking about how to find these, here it is. All right, next on the list, we have the receivables breakdown report. So on this report, we're able to track the progress throughout the month in regards to production, collections, and adjustments. The number in the last column is going to correspond to accounts receivable, and that is tracked daily. The AR is increased by production, decreased by collections, and it can be altered either way by adjustments. By closely tracking the AR every day, it's possible to determine if changes were made in the practice management software after all the reports were run. This is where we catch a lot of our mistakes. And also, I'll tell you a little bit later, but we found unintended consequences of changing some systems in our office. So this report looks like a lot, but it's not. We have the entire month of April of 2022. We will go into each column and what it means, but all of these numbers, it doesn't matter what the numbers are. It matters that they track correctly. They work for your practice. I'm not $1 million practice. I don't want to be. I have a tiny practice, but I work the way I want to. And I can tell you how all these numbers came to be. So let's go to the first column. We have production. It is the number associated with the amount of dentistry that was produced that day. It is a pure number. It has no write-offs or adjustments, and this number is only controllable by doing more dentistry and seeing more patients, or doing less dentistry and seeing less patients, but focus on the positive. So this is such a raw number, and it is always important to make sure it is inputted correctly, because think of how you want to record things in your office. If you do free dentistry on employees, if you advertise lower fees for something, that should always be captured in adjustments. It should never be captured in your true production. If you put something in as $0, you're never going to have a way to accurately figure out how much you've written off for doing those things, like offering employee benefits or offering promotional deals. Like we do promotional Botox units, $1 off, but we always put it in as the full unit price, and then we do adjustments later on so I can record it and figure out how much business that brought in opposed to other days. All right, next is collections. This is represented in two columns on this sheet. So we have payment and insurance payment, and it's the two ways that our office is paid, because even though we're out of network, we are not truly fee for service. We still submit insurance, and insurance sends us money. If you add the patient payment with the insurance payment, you're going to have the total collections for the day. And on a different report, I'm going to go into the different payment methods. If you are truly fee for service and you don't send anything off for the patient, you will likely only have a payments column, which is just easier to keep up with. All right, next I have my adjustments. So this is generally a negative number, but adjustments can happen day of the treatment or after insurance paid. It can be it's different than a write-off column. So we don't have write-offs because we do not have contractual obligations of writing things off for being in network. But these things represent our in-office membership plan. If I told a patient I'm going to go ahead and write off x-rays because they're being belligerent about it, it's all things that I have approved and decided on. Also employee benefits. I get in later about all the different adjustments that we have at our office. In this last column, so this report, we mainly print only to see this last column because all of the other columns, we have representation elsewhere in other reports. But again, this system is filled with systems that cross-balance each other and double check. So the accounts receivable is a number that represents how much money is owed to you at the end of the day. May seem very basic, but this may be geared towards dental students or fresh out people. And I did not know what accounts receivable was when I graduated dental school. So I'm speaking to the person that doesn't know and feels a little too scared to ask. All right. So at the end of the day, this is how much money is owed to you. You will always have AR if you are not truly fee for service, which means the patient does not pay you 100% of the amount when they come in for their appointment. If you are sending off any money to insurance, or if the patient's on a payment plan, or if you told the patient we're going to send this off and then we will collect your balance afterwards, those are all situations which will result in IOUs, which means people will owe you money and you have to wait on it. This number should be closely monitored. It's something that can get super out of hand, mainly if there's a lot of reasons, but this can be in the hundreds of thousands if insurance claims are not followed up on. Because insurance is never going to turn around and be like, wow, we forgot to pay you guys. We need to pay you so much more money. It's something that you have to follow up on and make sure that your AR is very tight. In our office, our AR fluctuates around about a 2-week period of production of our office. So I see anywhere from starting, we have 28,000, ending 37,000. It sticks around in between that number. I'd say it's around 30,000-ish. And on average, we're producing around 60,000-ish. So it's about a half month of production for our office because we have very tight follow-up with all of our claims, and we keep patients on a short leash. We let them know when they need to pay us, and we follow through with that. All right, so now that we have identified the individual components of the receivables breakdown, why do we have this report? How do we monitor it? So what we do is we keep a separate set of books and we check the report every single day to catch errors in the end of day process. So the AR should always stack perfectly. And if the AR does not match from the previous day, the error must be found and corrected. And there's plenty of reasons that why it can happen. But as you can see on this report from 4/4/2022, we have our ending AR of $27,551.85. Now, the next day when we come in and we do dentistry all day long, we'll print the exact same report, and it's going to have another line because we completed another day. But we should look back at the day before and see, is that number the exact same? If it is not, something happened after end of day. In our office, we started implementing a way that we could text statements to patients and they could pay directly on their phone, which is great. Like, you should always make it easy for patients to pay, or if you have a way for them to pay online and it gets automatically recorded into your PMS. So it was probably a 2-week period where we would come in and every single day our AR was a little bit off. And then we rerun all of our reports to see where the error is. And we always collected more money. I was getting really mad at my front desk saying, like, how are you not catching it? And then we realized they're paying at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., and it's getting recorded on the same end of day, but it's after we closed, and ultimately a good problem to have, but it just makes it so this happens sometimes and have to take a look at it. I just ran my QuickBooks and my payroll, doing this on a day off. Came in and our AR was off by $180. And then I went back, I reran my payment report, and looky there, someone paid us $180 at 11 p.m. when it was convenient for them. So it's not always a bad thing. It's just something that you need to stay on top of, and you need to know if this number changes or fluctuates, why. This could also be someone decides to write something off afterwards, or they decide that they actually did do fluoride on someone and they just throw it into the production and they think it's not going to cause a huge issue, but it has a very big ripple effect that you're able to piece apart later. And next, this is how you can get to this report. All right, into my favorite report. This is payments. All right, this report breaks down how we receive money. The categories include EFTs, checks, cash insurance checks, and credit card payments. It's important to break up the payments into these categories because they enter the bank account via different deposit methods. Yes, I'm going to say you have to be super on top of your bank account also. There's students who don't want to look at their bank account. I don't understand that, but you have to fix it. An error is easy to catch early on if the number on the report does not match up in QuickBooks or whatever accounting software you're using. So what do these reports look like? So these are 2 different days. Open Dental breaks these into 2 different report styles. We have our daily payments, and then it breaks it into insurance payments and patient payments. Those categories don't matter or apply much. I don't care how we are allocating the money. I care that the money is coming in. But as you can see, you can have multiple categories split up. So if you look to the right, we have a check section underneath insurance payments. We also have a check section underneath patient payments. When it comes down to it, all those checks are going to enter into my bank account in one deposit. So I know I need to add them together. That's the only reason why I have this. All right. So here are the subcategories. It breaks down into check, EFTs, cash, and credit card. So looking at all of these numbers, you have to have a way to report them. All right. How do you prefer to get paid? Everyone has a preference, but I prefer money in the bank. So EFTs, checks that we have a direct deposit machine for that gets deposited every single night. I don't love cash. Cash is fine, but it's harder to, I'll get into it. It's harder to allocate for. It's just kind of annoying. And credit cards are annoying because they have their fees associated. All right. At the end of the day, we run our checks. So this is how we do our checks. We have a remote deposit machine. It is the easiest way to ensure that money is flowing into the bank daily. So we look at our payment reports and we're able to see the money and the quantity of checks that are run through the office every day. And again, you have to make sure they match. So looking at this report on the right, we have 2 checks and their total amount. So if we add those green highlighters together, they will match the green highlight on the left side. And as you can see, quantity-wise, we have 2 checks. So saying that we have 2, and this ensures I know every check that came into the building was entered into the PMS and is now in my bank account. What is an EFT? An EFT stands for an electronic funds transfer. It's the newest way to be paid by insurance company, even though it's been around for a while. Instead of waiting for a check to be mailed, you have the option to opt into EFT payments from many of the larger insurance companies. So money will be deposited directly into your business account with a trace number that you can use to look up and find the explanation of benefits. Be careful to not sign up for any EFTs that have hidden fees. If that happens, then you would rather receive a check from this insurance company. A lot of them are employing a third party to get in between and make it easier for you to get your money. The only way you should ever sign up for EFTs is if no money is lost in the transaction. It's a great way to get paid, but you have to stay on top of your bank account in order to stay organized. And some doctors don't want to allow their employees access to their bank account. I don't either, but there's ways around it. So all of our transactions from our bank account go into QuickBooks. I distill down all the information to an important list. I print that list out and then I give it to my front desk every single day. And this ensures that EFTs are always getting entered in as soon as they're in my bank account. So this is the root of the money. So first, the money is deposited into my bank account from the insurance company. Second, I see the money when I update my QuickBooks in the morning. It'll say, these are all the new things that are in your bank account. What do you want to do with them? And then I put things in the correct categories. Then I have this list, and number 3 is what's left over. So I print out this from QuickBooks and I hand it to my front desk staff. They use the trace numbers, which are in the details section, to identify the payment and attach the EOB via Inside Desk. Inside Desk is a great company. If you want to know more about it, let me know. Number 4, the payments are posted into Open Dental to close out the associated claims. So if you look at the report on the left, that is the money actually in my bank account. And then on the exact same day, it's getting put into Open Dental, which means there is no downtime whatsoever. Next, we have cash. So cash is good. It's also kind of inconvenient sometimes because you have to keep a close eye on it. And I gotta say, probably the hardest thing to stop theft or embezzlement from, because it's cash. It's harder to trace. So we keep a petty cash in a lockbox. It used to be around 300. Now I think we keep about 100. You only need enough to make change, really. So when someone pays cash, it goes into the lockbox. We have a sheet of paper every single day as cash is collected. It shows up on the cash report, and we also have a ledger with our cash box just to keep track of how much money is in there any given time. When too much money is in the lockbox, and too much money is relative to every person, write a personal check to the office for the amount you wish to remove from petty cash, and then you are going to take that money and you're going to put it in your pocket. The personal check is going to be run separately into the remote check scanner from the end of day patient checks. When the personal check clears QuickBooks, it's going to be marked as a transfer from petty cash into your normal bank account. So the first time I heard this, I was like, this sounds illegal. It's not. It makes complete sense. So I've also never had to go to an ATM since we've started this system. So right now, I know our petty cash has like $800 in it. That's too much for me comfortably. So what I am going to do is I'm going to take my personal checkbook. I'm going to write a check for $700 because I want to leave some in there. I am going to put it on our check scanner. It's going to be run tomorrow when my front desk comes in. I'm going to take $700 out of petty cash with me, and I'm going to put it in my pocket. I have essentially just made change with the office. I am paying for the money. It's all getting recorded. It is just in a safer vessel because I have the money and the office has a check. So that check is going to be run separately, but through the same remote deposit thing. So it'll be in the bank account tomorrow. And then I can take the money and I can run to my personal bank, or I can just keep it just to have cash money. The alternative to doing this is running to the bank and depositing cash into your business bank account. You absolutely can do this. It's inconvenient for me. There's only 2 physical banks in my area that are my business bank, and they're pretty far away. So it's just more convenient for me to do it this way, but you absolutely can just take the money out and go deposit it. If you're doing that, make sure you don't have employees do it. And also, for multiple reasons, something that is a big thing is if you have an employee running any type of errand for your office, there's a liability associated with that. If they get in a car crash, if they get robbed with the money that you have, all of that, they were doing something for the office at that point in time. So it's just a liability thing. So just make sure that when it comes to any office errands, you're really the person that's doing it. And next, we are going into credit cards. All right, at the end of the day, check the settlements on your credit card machine. Every processor should have this. The amount should match up to the total credit card payments. If it doesn't, you got to figure out why. So either a payment was entered and it was not recorded into your PMS, or a payment was not taken and an account was marked as though it was. Both of those are bad things. You need to make sure that money actually exchanges hands. And yeah, it's just, you got to keep up with it. It gets a little complicated with refunds. You should be in charge or involved in every refund that happens. Voids happen on the same day, and super easy. A void says the transaction never happened. A refund, the transaction happened and it was refunded back to the card of origin. And you should, as the practice owner, you should be the one that is in charge of that, and you should be timely with it. Patients do not like to wait on their money, especially if they feel like it was collected wrongly or that you owe the money back. All right, off of the payment report. This is on the adjustment report. So this report shows any money that was adjusted in patient accounts. It is usually a negative number, but occasionally it can be a positive number if you're refunding someone. It's important to categorize every adjustment and understand why they happen. Adjusting an account to make the math work is never a solution. Each adjustment has a discrete purpose and explanation. I bought this practice, and a lot of adjustments were happening in order to make the math work and make it so that patient accounts made sense. And all that meant was writing off money that was actually owed to the office in order to avoid uncomfortable conversations or avoid having to collect money from patients. And I think this is one of the most casual forms of embezzlement, of someone's not taking money from you for themselves, but they are trying to make life easier on the patient involved. So they will just write off things that they shouldn't be writing off. So what are some reasons that we have adjustments? These are reasons that we have in our office. So we give a lot of family and friend discounts, professional discounts. If someone is getting a refund, then we account for that. Promotional discounts, if we ever run specials on Botox. Membership discount, we have an in-office membership plan. So they pay for the membership yearly up front, and then every time they come in, we're writing off their preventative services. Write off for complimentary treatment. Sometimes if someone has a ton of sensitivity and they're like hesitant on doing fluoride, I will give them fluoride. We are going to write down that we did it just so we have a ledger and an account saying it happened, but I'm going to write it off in this way. I'm going to adjust it off in order to make sure that the patient is in no way collected from, and just so we know we did it. We occasionally have to write off for bad debt. I'm sure every office has a little bit of that. And office errors. Mistakes do happen. And this is not to say every mistake is an error that is dishonest. It's so not. I make mistakes every day. So do my employees. But you just really hope that they're not catastrophic. And as long as you have multiple eyes on the same thing, mistakes are caught and fixed in a constructive manner. How are adjustments different than write-offs? I choose to put in an adjustment on an account. So a write-off is a contractual agreement between you and an insurance company to reduce what you will collect from the patient. You should always send off your office fee and write off the difference afterwards in order to accurately keep track of how much you are writing off from each company. Being in network, your write-off expense is considered marketing. I spend a lot of money on marketing because I don't write anything off in order to be on a list. All right. These reports look like this. So being out of network does not mean no adjustments. It means that I choose what I want to write off. So on the right, you can see a typical adjustment report, and that's over $700 on a day. But I think we did a cleaning on one of our employees. My friend came in. I think I did a filling on her. A returned check. It was an insurance company that sent us 2 copies of the same check. They both cleared, and then we had to return one. But these are the weird things that pop up. Write-offs. So we needed bite wings for an appointment, and the patient was being finicky about it. So we just said, sure, we'll write it off. I will always take the x-rays. I'm never going to tell someone no. But it's just how much I want to fight with them about money. And then we have our membership program. So this is pretty much the full amount of them getting a comprehensive exam, getting a full mouth series of x-rays, getting a cleaning, and getting fluoride. Also, if I redo anything, I'm going to write it off, but I'm going to put in the full amount that I did it, just so we can keep track of it. This is how you access the adjustment report on Open Dental. I'm getting towards the end. All right, here is all production. So this report is for convenience sake. It also serves as a simple way to view production per day. If each provider has checked their sheet prior to this report being printed, then the production should be collaborated in each report. I use this report specifically when I'm inputting everything into Open Dental, just because it gives me an idea of who was in the office on that day and what did they produce. So as you can see on the upper left, we have Amy's report is going to coincide with this, and my report is going to coincide with this number. We also had another person in the building, and her report also added up to 130. We added it all together, and we have the total production for the day. And this is how you access it. All right, so this is the end of day packet. Add anything you want to, but this is a very easy to keep up with packet. All right, so now that we have the packet, what do we do with it? So we are going to use the packet to complete the end of day tasks. And again, you can add more tasks if you need for your office, but we need to submit all of our claims. We need to run the checks through the remote credit card or remote check processor. We need to close out merchant services, which is just double checking. And we need to scan all of those end of day reports into the Google Drive. So the steps of a claim, especially if you're a very new graduate and you've never worked in a dental office, claims are confusing. They really are. And you'll learn it eventually. But this always reminds me of the I'm Just a Bill song from Schoolhouse Rock, because it's just a claim. It goes through a lot of different things. And then at the end, you get money. So the purpose of having production sheets checked by the provider is to ensure an accurate claim. Once each provider has verified and initialed their production sheet, the front office can ensure that the claim being created in Open Dental is correct. Throughout the day, claims are made and held in Open Dental. Some claims will need attachments onto them, and that's going to happen before they end up getting sent out. And all claims can be changed and modified before we hit send. So I have a nice little flow chart on the right. So we have our production is going to turn into a claim being made. That claim is in pencil. The provider is going to check out the accuracy of what happened and say, we did 2 fillings. We didn't do 3. I'm going to go up to the front desk and say, we did 2 fillings. And they say, oh, okay. They go in and they delete it, and then they recreate a new claim that only has 2 fillings on it. They're going to say, doesn't need any attachments. If you're doing a crown, do you need a periapical? If you're doing a pre-auth for scaling root planing, do you need an FMX? Do you need full perio charting? Those are things that need to get added on, and the front desk is going to be the last stop in figuring that out. And then once all the claims are batched together, they get sent to the clearinghouse where they are distributed to all the different insurance companies. I know the least about all of this. I know this much. I 100% get it. But once it gets to the clearinghouse, I don't know how that magic happens, but it gets sent out, and the follow-up on any normal claim should be about 10 to 14 days. You should have a solid idea of where that is. And that is where we use Inside Desk at our office in order to keep up with things and kind of know the status of things. If anything bounced back, if there's any errors on anything. The world of claims is so interesting. All right, next we are going to run the checks. So having a remote check deposit is going to make your practice run smoothly. If you're working with a small bank, they may let you use one for free. We use a small bank. I pay no fee for having a bank account. I don't have to keep any amount. I have no prepayment penalty on my loan, and I get a free check deposit thing. I'm not anti-big banks, but I kind of am. So bigger banks may have like stipulations, or they may not let you hold on to these things for free. So this remote deposit report is then added to the end of day packet, and it's going to corroborate the payment report. So this is the same one I showed you before. This is just the cover sheet on our payments, and it says, yes, this is what is reflected in our PMS, and this is what actually went into the bank account. And the next day, it'll pop into my bank account in QuickBooks, and I match it to the report that I put in, and it all matches up perfectly. Next, we are going to close out merchant services. So every merchant service terminal is going to have a way to see that every credit card that was run that day, and any voids and any refunds. The amount on the merchant services terminal should match exactly with the payment report credit card section. If it doesn't, you got to figure out why. So backtrack and figure out where the error happened and fix it. And this is where the magic of the separate set of books. So if you ever go into your PMS, you can run reports from previous days. But any change that happens can typically get altered to show up on any day it needs to. This is a hard copy that we print out every single day that tells me on that day, what did the end of day look like? So as you can see, we have 2022 05 10 EOD, and that was put in on May 10th. The only way that is ever going to get edited is if someone goes in and deletes it. I'm pretty sure I have it so no one can delete it, but I should double check on that. We've never had an issue with it. It's super helpful, especially, so not only do we keep our end of days in here, we also keep our EOBs. Every EOB that's open in the mail, we scan it in and we associate it with the day. That way, once they're all scanned in, they can get shredded. And we are able to look at our PMS and see when did this payment get entered. And from there, we can go find the EOB very easily digitally without ever having to have a paper copy. Same with EFTs. Any EFT that comes in, we know what day it was entered and we can go find it. So typically every day is going to have an EOD, an EOB, and an EFT. Wish they were different names, but they're just not. And we save them in the exact same way every single time so that they pop up in order and makes it really easy to find them later. So in summary, we have our end of day packet and we have our end of day tasks, and these can get changed and edited however you want. Again, this is just how we do it. This was fun to record. I like making presentations. We have a lot of systems in our office, so if there's anything that you're interested in learning more about, I would love to have a project of putting together a presentation. And again, I am Delaney Spaulding. I own Rossbridge Dentistry in Hoover, Alabama. This is my email, and that is my cell number. Didn't really think that through. Text me if you want, I guess. I think this QR code might still work, but you can leave your feedback on this presentation. This is my first ever presentation that I have put together, and I think I'm going to put it on YouTube. So just let me know if you want to know more, and thank you so much for joining me.